I say lob it to Ryan Perez in the paint off a couple of screens.
Esquivel to Garcia. Off the deflection. Los Fresnos comes back and wins.
Now Santa Maria will put up a three. Bang! Santa Maria!
There's Warner. Here comes a headed jam. Counted for two. Field. Adios! And the Falcons win on a walk-off. And it's saved. What a game.
Smack to the left. That is gone.
Lob for Perez. That's my play. Off the backboard. Count it. And a win. And a win. Ryan Perez wins the game for the Santa Rosa Warriors, and they go nuts. And why not? Live once again here from Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. Luke Fruia Motors here in Brownsville, Texas. I'm Jacob Young. This is Real Sports Live Network. Yeah, if you're in the market for a new car, check out Luke Fruia Cadillac Buick GMC. Of course, they'll have a lot of selections for you all and phenomenal staff as well. Anyways, now on to, of course, the sports. We'll be talking about, well, what is coming up this weekend for Rio Sports Live Network. We'll be talking about, of course, the finishing up our March Madness talk for the final time. We'll be touching upon it for college basketball. That is officially done and dusted, finished in Tampa, Florida, and none other than San Antonio, Texas, with the Final Four from both the men's and women's. And then, of course, also talking about all the talking about the Progresso Red Ants and their season in the UIL, of course. That will be an interesting topic to talk about. And then, of course, going into also the Red Crowns of the RGV. Well, the RGV Red Crowns, a team in Harlingen, Texas. That'll be a fun topic, as well as talking a little bit of TSC soccer, just because, well, there's a couple of signings for those teams, and, well, we'll want to talk about those players and, well, just how important those signings were, especially for the semi-pro soccer side of the RGV Red Crowns. And, of course, they announced their season beginning this upcoming May. Their first home match will be May 24th, so we'll talk about that. That is, of course, your none other than Memorial Day weekend, but that will be the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, thank goodness, because, well, there's just a lot in store on that Sunday, to be exact, and, of course, Monday for everybody. So very exciting stuff, very exciting show to talk about, a lot more news than necessarily expected, and 90% of it is local, which is pretty cool. So moving on, for Rio Sports Live Network this weekend, what is coming up really will most likely be potentially on Friday, a softball game, but in general, for sure, what the schedule will be none other than the state championships for the none other than charter school soccer. So that will be very exciting, as a charter school soccer will get to play, and it will be in San Marcos, Texas, not at the campus to be exact, but it will be at a different campus, a San Marcos High School to be exact, and that will be very nice because they have multiple fields to also play the matches, which is always big, and that will be something out of sorts and very exciting. This has just quickly frozen, so we'll get this situated real quick. Be right back.
Have a finger-licking good time at the South Padre Island Crawfish Festival, happening April 12th at the South Padre Island Convention Center. Immerse yourself in crawfish heaven as you taste traditional boils and innovative twists on this Louisiana specialty. Let the good times roll with live music from Morgan Wallen Tribute Band, 7 Summers. There'll be plenty of fun for the whole family, and oh yeah, plenty of crawfish. It's the South Padre Island Crawfish Festival.
Innovation, AT4, AT4X, Denali. Case closed. Fruia GMC, we're professional grade.
Okay, back we go once again here. So basically, like I mentioned, of course, what to expect on Rio Sports Live Network on our YouTube channel this weekend. So that will be a big thing. Also, of course, one thing that I really wanted to touch up on, it's a little tidbit, which is really very, very interesting in general, in my opinion, and it should be interesting for a lot of these, for just everyone in general. And of course, it caught my eye because it's so impressive. Trying to quickly find it here, but because I want to get it exactly correct on what I had to, as 1 hour ago actually. We'll have some breaking news here in a second, so that'll be exciting to talk about. But this came off of Max Preps, but this is also just in general just something that is absolutely amazing in my eyes. This was the 2020 women's basketball class, recruiting class, off of course, even ESPN. This was the 2020 Hoop Girls Recruiting Rankings, ESPN W100. Your top 5 recruiting class your recruiting class that was the top 5 just in 2020. Remember, they also had, because of that, had an opportunity to play another year, I believe 5 years to be exact, if I'm not mistaken. But this top 5 just in general: Paige Beckers, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, Caitlin Clark, Camila Cardoso. Paige Beckers will most likely be a number 1 pick, the number 1 pick in round 1 this upcoming WNBA draft to the Dallas Wings. Angel Reese, also with a national championship on her belt, yes, was coached by one of the greatest coaches in women's college basketball history, Kim Mulkey. Whether you like her or not, she's still a really good coach. She still gets the job done and has led herself to picking up, I believe, 3 national championships and helped LSU lead themselves to that national title, which was very impressive in general, considering, well, as we all know, how much Angel Reese has a chip on her shoulder. To be exact, is sort of a difficult player to be coached, but can still be coached. And she was able to get the LSU Tigers out of, everything out of that LSU Tiger team, including Angel Reese, is what brought her into that first round, being picked by the Chicago Sky. Cameron Brink, well, unfortunately, this last year, of course, tore her ACL, but in college was absolutely phenomenal and goes to, of course, the LA Sparks, a dynasty of a program in the WNBA. And Caitlin Clark, well, brings a different culture to the Iowa Hawkeyes women's basketball program. The Iowa Hawkeyes women's basketball program before Caitlin Clark really weren't that good, and was able to bring life to that program, and now players want to come in and play for that team, which is very impressive. Just right off the bat. And then Camila Cardoso, easily the most underrated player, plays for none other than, will be playing for the Chicago Sky this next year for her second year. So very exciting, and it's just absolutely that top 5 in general, electrifying for women's basketball and just how skilled those players are. And yes, Paige Beckers, she, guess what, is going to be playing in a very, very difficult league called the WNBA. But really looking at it, what she came from in those 4 to 5 years that she played for UConn, I think she has just what it takes to do that. And so that's, of course, the last really remaining player. And, of course, Haley Van Lith is expected to be 9th as well in this upcoming draft too, so that'll be very exciting. She's expected to go to none other than the LA Sparks, which means the LA Sparks are almost one player away from being another dynasty and having a championship opportunity to really push for another championship. So just very exciting stuff in the WNBA. I cannot wait for all of that to be played, because it's just very much electrifying, more than it has been in the past, and that's why keeping up with it has been fun. Anyways, moving on to really the big topics of this day. We'll start off, of course, with talking about as we mentioned, Paige Bueckers. We'll start off with that. The Women's Basketball National Championship, their semifinals and finals were that weekend after last Wednesday, and what was to come of it was kind of a little shocking in a way. The Texas Longhorns were able to make the Final Four. They beat, of course, TCU in the Elite Eight. They made that Final Four with none other than South Carolina, UConn, and UCLA. So that was your Final Four, UConn being the University of Connecticut. One of the interesting parts about that was the University of Connecticut played against none other than UCLA in the first round. UCLA, that was their first ever time to make the Final Four. So the UCLA Bruins having a long ways to go in just their program, but being able to make that first time was key. So all of a sudden, the University of Connecticut were just on another level, were able to take care of business easily, winning that game by a score of, I believe, let me just actually make sure that I get the proper score for you all. And the Huskies, of course, won that game 85-51, which will be a little bit of a theme in this Final Four for them. University of South Carolina, USC, how did they do? Well, it was pretty interesting. Struggled a little bit against Texas, but were able to win 74-57 in the end, just missing out on winning by 20 because Texas made sure that USC would not win by 20. So that was pretty interesting in itself. As well, the Texas Longhorns make it to the Final Four, but make it one game away from making the championship. Then it was South Carolina taking on the UConn Huskies in the championship game. And the UConn Huskies did not look back from the start. Right as the tip-off happened, just like earlier in the season, we're talking as early as all the way at the start of the season, which I'm trying to just look for, but UConn played against them and absolutely destroyed them. Might not have actually been this season, but either way, I actually believe it was. But there it is, yes. February 16th, UConn played against South Carolina, and it was at South Carolina to be exact, and UConn had won 87-58. Absolutely blowing them out at home and defeating South Carolina with that crazy home record that they had, home win record. So moving on to, of course, the national championship, UConn Huskies did the same exact thing, did not look back and won by a score of 82-59, giving Paige Bueckers her first national championship, and giving Gino Auriemma and UConn, the Lady Huskies, their 12th national title in the span of however long they've been that dominant. Now, like I said, it was not like this was a given for the UConn Huskies. They had a tough ride throughout the seasons, but they had been in the Final Four and knew that they were one season really away from being that elite. And sure enough, Paige Bueckers and the whole entire team showed that they could do exactly that. Very impressive season for them, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Now, of course, on the next side, we travel all the way to San Antonio, Texas, at the Alamo Dome for the Final Four of the men's basketball. How did the men's basketball Final Four and championship all happen? Well, a pretty crazy ride. We'll start off. It was the Florida Gators that made it with the Auburn Tigers, the Houston Cougars, and on top of that, the Texas Tech Red Raiders did not make the Final Four. It was the Elite Eight. My mistake on that really quick. But it was the Houston Cougars who ended up taking on the Duke Blue Devils. That's what I was missing. The Duke Blue Devils in that game alone, just starting that one off, had the lead the whole entire time against the Houston Cougars, and the Houston Cougars were able to claw their way back in those final minutes and win by 2. They didn't try necessarily foul, playing phenomenal defense in the end, forcing Duke to turn it over and not making their free throws and all this fun stuff. And sure enough, the Houston Cougars come back and they win it by 3. 70-67 was your final score in that game. As for the Florida Gators, what was the difference really for the Florida Gators in this tournament? Well, it was 79-73 against the Auburn Tigers. The Auburn Tigers kind of fell apart in the end of that game as well, and in the end of the tournament, where one of their stars, the Auburn Tigers, didn't do as well as he was normally doing throughout that tournament and struggled, and the whole team really ended up kind of struggling in the end, sure enough, giving the Florida Gators the win by 6, 79-73, to make it to a national championship with an opportunity to have a third national title under their belt. Well, here's where things get a little crazy. National championship game. The last time that it was in San Antonio, to be exact, it wasn't necessarily amazing, but in 2008, it was Memphis versus Kansas. That was actually the two teams, and it was phenomenal with a buzzer, or close to a buzzer-beating win for the Kansas Jayhawks, getting their national championship. So, where does this land? Florida Gators, Houston Cougars, both 1 seeds, both an opportunity to win a national championship. Both coaches had never won a national title, but this would be the third national title if Florida were to win that game. It would be the first national championship for the Houston Cougars program if they were able to win in basketball. To be exact, basketball program, that would be their first national championship. This was very interesting in itself. The Houston Cougars were up the whole entire game. We'll give you even the overview. In the first half, to be exact, 31-28 was your score, Houston leading Florida. Then Florida were able to outscore Houston 37-32. That was the difference. They played the defense, were able to really attack and finish it off the right way. They win the national championship 65-63. We'll get into that last play here in a second, because that was a key play that you really want to hear me talk about. But even then, there's one, of course, controversial play. There was a 2-pointer. Houston Cougars trying to go for it, and was kind of ripped off the rim by the Florida Gators. They reviewed it, called it no goaltend, and, well, that could have been the 2 points that could have led this into an overtime thriller potentially, but that is, of course, what people are saying. Now, for myself, I'm saying I'm biased on this. Sure, the goaltend says if the ball is still on the rim and you swipe that one off, that's a goaltend. If it hits the backboard and then you hit it off the glass and it was supposed to make it, that's a goaltend. So the same goes for, an offensive side of things, where if it's on the glass and you tip it in for the offense, that's a goaltend. Those 2 points don't count. So that's the rule of it, to be exact. But going back to it, last play, Florida Gators, what do they have to do? Simple. Play defense. They were able to score to take the lead. 65-63, 17 seconds to play. And the Houston Cougars, I believe, took a timeout or whatever, and were able to dribble it down the court, still having time. Passes it around, and this is the weird part. Didn't seem like they had enough urgency to try to find the open man, to try to find the open player, wasting a little too much time. And then really good defense again from the Florida Gators. Give them credit. They're trying to shoot it, decides to kind of spike it in a way near the three-point line. Can't touch it, obviously, because it counts as a shot and it didn't hit anything or whatever. It's like a penalty kick in soccer, and it's a crossbar and it comes back to you. You're not supposed to touch it. Anyways, time goes down all the way to 0. Florida Gators win. That's how the game ended. Now, watching it at first and then watching it again and again, still, the whole key of that final possession, final play, give your team an opportunity to just find a shot. Even if it's forced up, at least you have a shot on the way instead of almost wasting the 17 seconds. I don't know, that's how I felt about it. It was a frustrating end to a game that was phenomenal. Just because Florida Gators did everything they could to win the national championship and did. With Houston Cougars, they had 17 seconds. And they drew up a play not too long before that. I don't know. It just... I don't know what to say. It was a little frustrating of an end to the national championship game, but it was a phenomenal game no matter what you want to say about it. Florida Gators are your national champions, and that was, like I said, fantastic. San Antonio put on a great show in general, and it's going to be great. Looking forward to the next national next year's, of course, basketball season, next year's college football season, as always. And now really what we're off to is baseball season and some of course, American soccer, because guess what? European soccer, that's coming to an end very soon as well. Champions League is on its final legs. The Premier League, Championship, all the English football leagues are getting closer and closer to wrapping up, which is very exciting in general. One of the American teams that is Welsh, Wrexham, they sit in a very good spot in general. My whole point is sports for the fall and spring are coming to an end very quickly. So that is interesting in itself. We'll take a quick break at 2:30 to be exact, so we'll have a little more time to talk. But because I still have a lot to talk about now, we're going to switch gears, of course. We're speaking of soccer. We are going straight into talking about, this. There are a couple of signings that I want to talk about. First, starting with the RGV Red Crowns. Let's review where the RGV Red Crowns kind of sit. And, just a lot to talk about for this team as well. Even before we get to the signings, like I mentioned before at the start of this show, which is very important for the RGV Red Crowns, the Harlingen soccer side. Here's what is pretty interesting in general. We are going all the way down, and we'll start with this one. Right off the bat, Juan Carlos Alvarez Jr. signs with the RGV Red Crowns for this summer league. Juan Carlos Alvarez Jr. being the goalkeeper. His hometown, of course, being McAllen, Texas. High school was the RDV Toros Academy, and he played for American University. So American University, of course, located, actually, don't necessarily know, but American University located in the Patriot League, which we've actually talked about it a bit. It's in Washington, D.C., a private non-profit 4-year college, to be exact. So he's playing for a 4-year college in general. Very exciting. Well, the next one as well after this, Isaid Yanez. That's your newest signing. His hometown, of course, Mission, Texas, from Sherryland Pioneer High School, and he plays at St. Edward's College, which is kind of right now a good. It's a good pairing. It's all three of those players right there. They don't necessarily know each other, but it's one of the situations of they know good styles of soccer. St. Edward's University didn't do too bad of a job this past season, and then like I mentioned before, you have St. Edward's. You have two players from St. Edward's University. You have a player from American University. So St. Edward's, of course, it's a Division II. American University, that's a Division I, and they get to play, and he gets to play up north as a goalkeeper. What is big about that? Well, up north, that's normally where you have the blue bloods of college soccer. You're talking about the Duke Blue Devils. You're talking about the Syracuse Orange. On the men's side, you're talking about Wyoming, of course, not necessarily on this side, but Wake Forest, check that is what I meant to say. Wake Forest, that's a big one over near the Big Ten, Big East, all of that. That's where your soccer community kind of comes from on the men's college soccer side of things. Butler, for example, as well. A lot of top teams. So he's gotten to play against top competition. So that is very, very positive on that side, meaning, well, he has that experience. These are, yes, young players that are playing in a semi-pro league against same competition, but it only builds up these players good. And, well, at the same time, this is already seeming to be a winning roster. I'm already saying so many good things about this because I'm so impressed with how everything has been ran so far for this RGV Red Crowns team, and it's phenomenal. Now, going back on this other side as well, that's not where, of course, things end. Like I mentioned, there was one other player that was officially signed. That is Vicente Alvarez, midfielder. You've heard me talk about him before. He went to McAllen High School, a.k.a. Mac High, and also is from, of course, McAllen, Texas. It's his hometown, and plays for St. Edward's University. Very, very exciting. I don't expect us to see any players that are signed from any JUCOs, to be exact. I expect maybe, of course, potentially, only potentially, if there is a player signed from a JUCO, it would be, of course, their last year. They had already technically graduated from that JUCO and potentially playing for Blinn College or something like that. Of course, this team, as the owner, president has said, they want to keep it as local as possible. The signing's local. Yes, it doesn't sound like it is, but remember, where were they from? What high school did they go to? Who did they play with in that span of time? And going over out of, not necessarily out of state, but out of the valley to play soccer, that is massive. And there's only been success from that side so far, and I'm very excited for that. Because again, if you're, and I've said it before, there are two places that you would go if you're really good at soccer, if you're great at soccer in the valley. You are going to Division IIs to Division I colleges. You are going out of the valley to play soccer. that is if you're great. If you're a great soccer player, you're going out and you're getting that experience that you need to level up your game, level up your skills in the soccer world. Eh, And again, if you're still at the junior college level, well, guess what? You're still playing out of high school, 2 years at least, and you're just perfecting your skills. And that next 2 years, you have an opportunity to do exactly what these players are doing, going to a bigger college, if that's a possibility, and or maybe you get lucky and you get picked for a USL League Championship team with the Pro Rel going on now, promotion relegation in that league, or potentially get picked by an MLS side where that's just a franchise league. So there's a lot of good things about it. Well, it's 2:30 p.m. and like I mentioned, of course, talking about this Red Crowns, we might just touch up on the Red Crown soccer, and afterwards we will move on to talking about, well, the UIL state semis and finals for soccer. That is a big topic to touch up on. So we'll be right back after this.
Place on South Padre Island. How about Starney's hot dogs and more? These dogs are delicious and they're made the way you want to order. A new place on South Padre, Starney's hot dogs and more. Stop by today.
Fiber, this is our home. Take a look at home.
Sunny Glen Children's Home has provided a place of hope for every child since 1936. If you'd like more information on Sunny Glen and the services we offer, please visit us at www.sunnyglen.org.
Back we go once again here. Quick little commercial break, but like I said, a lot to talk about. We can technically go till 3:10, so I don't know why I'm really not taking my time in this show. But anyways, it's pretty cool. Well, keeping with the Red Crowns, the RGV Red Crowns, talking about this, again, this time it's their 2025 season schedule. They finally released it. First home game will be on the 24th, but that's not their first match of the season. Starting 1 week before that, in May, Saturday, May 17th, they will start off their season on the road, playing against San Antonio Corinthians FC. Then, at home, they will get to host Central Dallas FC on Saturday, May 24th. Then, we'll get to host San Antonio Corinthians FC right off the bat Saturday, May 31st. Be very exciting. Then, in June, Saturday, June 7th. So a little time from the first, or from that first side of things on the 31st to, of course, the Saturday on the 7th. A lot of these games will be on Saturday. A couple of games might be on Wednesday, but that'll be about it. The Coyotes FC, they'll travel to Central Texas Coyotes FC to play them. Same thing on the 14th. A week after that, they'll be in Dallas to play FC Dallas U23s. Then they'll play Tyler FC Sunday, June 15th. That still will be on the road. Then, of course, Ford Soccer Club in Dallas, Texas, will travel to, well, RGV, and they'll get to host another match for the RGV Red Crowns Saturday 21st against Ford Soccer Club, like we talked about. That's in June. Then Wednesday, the 25th, will be Austin United FC traveling down to face RGV Red Crowns. And then the final game of June, at least for home, I believe, will be Saturday, the 28th. Well, they'll play at home Revolution Football Club. Very exciting there. Once again, this is by the League FC, which stands for the League for the Clubs. And then in July, just one match. Wednesday, July 2nd, on the road, they'll travel to Austin United FC to face, well, Austin United FC. That is, of course, the RGV Red Crowns, and that is their season coming up very, very soon. And it's a very short season in general, if you think about it. Only 3 games in May, 3 matches in May, I should say. And then June will be a busy month of 5 matches. Check that, 6 matches in June. And then in July will just be 1 match. That is, of course, Wednesday, July 2nd, like we mentioned, Austin United FC. So finishes all before the 4th of July, but that'll be very exciting because if we look at it this way, it's pretty simple. If there's a playoffs, which I believe that there will be, this Red Crown team already seems like they are more than capable of making the playoffs. And the crazy part is I've been looking and keeping in touch with the RGV Red Crowns soccer club. They're already selling merchandise. They already have a sponsor, a couple of sponsors, one of the sponsors being, I believe, a coffee company, which is very exciting in general, and just the way that they've been doing things. It was Bandera Coffee Company, to be exact. My whole point in announcing all this is because it's so interesting and just gets fans excited, and it feels so much different than RGVFC Toros did. This is so much marketing. It's unreal in my eyes. And the craziest part is it's not like this club has the biggest budget that they can spend. This is a semi-pro soccer league in general. They don't necessarily have a stadium done and dusted yet, but that'll take some time, and it will be ready by, of course, the first match in May, so it's coming up. Whole point is very, very excited for this whole entire season. I know everyone is. I really do know. And the way that the RGV Red Crowns are, they're waiting for potentially a mystery brew for, of course, an alcoholic beverage and all of that. It's going to make things exciting. I'm really looking forward to this. And again, like I mentioned, a couple of those teams that I read used to be in the NPSL. The NPSL is still a league that was the same sort of semi-professional league in a way, but it was just done completely wrong because the NPSL was kind of done in the inauguration of soccer in the U.S., sort of. And it just did not feel like it was run particularly amazingly, but you had your Laredo Uniteds, your Laredo Furies, I should say. But Tyler FC, that's a team that I remember from the NPSL, moving over to the League FC, the League 4 club. So it's not like those teams also didn't know as well. So some of them moving over to the League FC brings more excitement for myself because I know of those teams. Because there are big name clubs that have come over for this. FC Dallas U23s, they could be playing in MLS Next if they really wanted to, but they decided to join the semi-pro league to give their players the proper exposure, apparently, to give their players the proper look at competition. So there's a really good chance that this is going to be not necessarily a national well, it's going to be broadcasted most likely on YouTube, and it's going to be a potentially a major audience. And of course, this season is so short as well that teams don't necessarily get to play each other twice, which is fine. No one really is bothered by that. I'm not necessarily bothered by that. I would have loved to see FC Dallas U23s come down here, but if they're not coming down here, it's not that big of a deal. They get to go up there and potentially play at an empty, maybe only the practice field of FC Dallas, or potentially at the major Toyota field, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool because of the fact that that's where the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame is, which that's very neat, and just I've always thought that that was so cool. So that's just one of the things to really think about, and so looking forward to this season as well. Very happy for this team and looking forward to it. Once again, this is brought to you by Luke Fruia Motors, Buick GMC and Cadillac. If you're in the market for a new car, come over to Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac, located in Brownsville, Texas. We'll be right back after this, and when we return, we will talk about UIL soccer. Stay tuned.
All ages. Then dance the night away with live music. Savor fresh seafood and discover unique food trucks and shop our charming boutiques. What are you waiting for? Escape the everyday at South Padre Island.
Sherryland ISD, a nationally recognized district focusing on quality and rigorous instruction where every child is immersed in a culture of academic success. Sherryland ISD, excellence is our tradition.
When you study local at Texas Southmost College, you can choose from over 50 associate degree programs, certificates, and workforce training programs, all at the most affordable cost in the Rio Grande Valley. Transfer your TSC credits to a university or start a new career, like Kat Gomez, who graduated from TSC and is now patrolling the streets of Brownsville and serving her community. Register now at tsc.edu/register and study local at Texas Southmost College.
Time to take a new look, maybe your first look at Buick. If smart, hip, and affordable is for you, Buick's your brand. Fruia Buick, Brownsville, Texas.
Back we go once again here, talking a little bit about soccer. Yes, we'll talk UIL in a quick second. Just want to give a quick shout out to a couple of players that have signed with, of course, Texas Southmost College, and those were two big signings for themselves. And of course, one was an hour ago, so that's why it's a little bit of a breaking news. And I thought that I would shout them out and give them a little, just a little shout out real quick. Southmost College athletics real quick. And so, one of the big things right now, La Jolla Coyotes captain Jose Borrego will be joining the Scorpion family for the fall of 2025. Jose Borrego, midfielder, signed officially. That was at that time 1 hour ago, now 2 hours ago. Now another one that was also 2 hours ago. That was just announced today. Rachel Andaverde for the Sherryland Rattler Star, Lady Rattler Star. Rachel Anaverde will be representing the Scorpions this fall. She officially has signed as a midfielder. Those are two major signings for this team, as well as one day ago as well, the Valley View Tiger committing to Scorpion Soccer. That's America Gonzalez. Now, this is a crazy story in just general, as all these signings kind of coming in for this team, of course. But one of the biggest things that really catches my eye is this Valley View Tiger committing to Scorpion Soccer. This is for, of course, Women's Soccer, America Gonzalez. Now, it's an interesting story for this Valley View Tiger Soccer program in general. I remember a year ago when they were with 5A in UIL Division 5A, Region 4. This was a massive, massive thing. That District 31 was cutthroat. You expected Sherryland to make the playoffs. You expected there to be 5 teams at least going for four playoff spots, and you did not expect Valley View Girls Soccer to be one. That was just constant. Well, then Valley View, of course, in the offseason, they moved to 4A. Not that big of a deal, but kind of expected. It's like, okay, their counterpart, Harlingen High School, have been in 4A for all their time. Why haven't Valley View moved to 4A? Then they finally moved to 4A and had an easier time. This year, they won district outright pretty comfortably. And my whole point of that is it was a complete turnaround because they were one of the last place teams almost not winning one game, if not winning one game, and barely having a roster to suffice. And now, of course, a year later, they are an amazing program. And, of course, that's one of the things that I was also looking at is, well, guess what, that head coach? He's up for Coach of the Year, as well as, of course, one other coach, Daniel Malakara, which has, of course, another list. But it's very, very impressive, just in general, for just the turnarounds that those clubs or those teams in UIL, in 5A, 4A, whatever it has been, making those complete turnarounds with clubs that you didn't think of 3 years ago at least, and even a year ago too. So very, very impressive. Going back forward, of course. Now, on that subject of UIL, well, let's talk about, of course, the state semis and, well, state finals, of course, will be this weekend for UIL. But really quickly with the sort of max preps, we'll go quickly with, I guess, we'll start off with just quickly. We'll go with the 4A, which will be, yes. How did the Progresso Red Ants do? Well, of course, everyone by now knows the story, unfortunately, of how it all happened. But we go and we'll talk about the UIL Texas Soccer State Finals coming up here very shortly. It'll be Castleberry taking on Toledo in April 3rd through the 5th. Castleberry won easily 2-0 over Community. This is why this was such a big thing to really talk about. Toledo will win by a score of 3-0. Why did they win by a score of 3-0? Well, there was a story about this, and this is what we have to cover. Or not have to, but this is what I've really wanted to cover throughout this because there's some interesting facts about it. So, this is what the news has picked up. And so we'll, for the start, go for this. We'll go for this story. Which will just talk about it here. From KRGV Channel 5 News, this is what they said. UIL disqualified Progresso Red Ants boys soccer team The UIL hearing officer found out that Progresso High School did not determine the student's eligibility through the appropriate process and allowed the student to participate in soccer games throughout the season. We do ask UIL to perhaps, this is what the coach said. Check that. The parent, Elizabeth Guerrero, said. And of course, meanwhile, Progresso ISD posted on Facebook, "We accept the decision and remain committed to upholding UIL procedures and the values of fair competition." And then the coach even... But here's what the interesting part is. Of course, that was the story. It was one player that transferred to La Jolla High School to play soccer and then transferred back, or La Jolla High School for other different reasons and transferred back. Well, you already transferred once. You're still eligible to play there. You transfer again, you're not eligible to play till the next year if you have another eligibility year. That's just the way that it has always been. You normally are, no matter what, ineligible for one season. Which is just unfortunate. That's just one of the stories. Now, there were other stories that came out, and let me tell you something. You can also find this on... You can really find this pretty interestingly on other places. Because really... Now, did UIL know about this part? I don't know. But you can easily search up the Progresso Red Ants roster and find these two players, which the players' names are also this: Cesar Meza and Hikar Segura. Why are these two players very important on this whole thing? Well, because both of these players play for academy teams. One of them being Pachuca. The next one, of course, Hector Segura, plays for a different team that's kind of tough for me to say, so JUA is the sign. And so that's kind of your difference. Now, of course, like I said, there is a side story about this whole thing, but right off the get-go, they played for the U15 Mexican national team and are on the roster. For Progresso Red Ants. I don't know if anyone knows this, but in general, UIL, you're not allowed, if you're on an academy team, because of the fact that this is high school sports, and there's a chance that you could be getting extra stuff on the side in all of these, and mainly when you're playing for an academy club, you're connected to that academy club, just like the RGVFC Toros Academy. That was a thing back when the academy, or back when the team was a thing. They had their own system, and you were not, if you were on that club, you were not allowed, if you were on that academy, you were not allowed to play UIL sports, UIL soccer, UIL football, whatever it might have been, you were not allowed to play. That is the truth. You could have been going to, for example, and this is actually a fact, back in that day, there were some students that were going to Mac High. And the only difference was for the soccer team right there, or for the soccer team, they were not allowed to play for that soccer team because they were a part of the U15's Toros Academy club teams. So they were not allowed to. There are some cases, and there have been, where it's like there's just elite clubs. And some of those, now that's completely okay because you're not getting benefits. You're still paying to play in America. And so that's, of course, mainly those club coaches don't necessarily want you to play your high school side of things, potentially because they're already going out of town and doing all this other stuff and having a ton of, those are travel teams. And it's a lot more things, but UIL has no problems with that. UIL, the problem is when you're already affiliated with a team, part of an academy, there are they will butt heads. They don't want that. And so you have to choose one or the other. And that's the interesting part, that they're also there. So, like I said, that's not what UIL came out with. That's not what the statement came out with. But that is just another side of things that could have, if they wanted to, have been looked into deeper. Now, this is still a crazy thing to think about because, again, the Progresso Red Ants, they broke rules. That is clear as day. People still want to argue about it. They broke the rule of eligibility. I can't tell you how many times, not only from this year, but also from last year, from a year prior to that, how many athletic programs have broken UIL rules for ineligibility. Coaches have lost their jobs because of that. Nicky Rowe, not too long ago, basketball program, did exactly that. I'll look up the story right now. Nicky Rowe basketball scandal in 2000, I believe, 22. And this was the truth. And this was, of course, 2024 to be exact. The University Interscholastic League's 31-5A District Executive Committee determined Wednesday that James Nicky Rowe's boys basketball team let an ineligible player take the court and determined the team had to forfeit all games in which that player took part, according to McAllen ISD. According to the district, that decision followed an internal investigation that found Coach Jose Yebra used an ineligible player during the 2023-24 season. The district says it relieved Yebra of his coaching duties and self-reported to the UIL. That was 1 year ago. 2024, 23-24 season in basketball. Then on top of that, you've had Valley View trying to do that multiple times. They've gotten caught a couple of times. You've had other teams, I believe Hidalgo got caught of that once, too. Got caught doing that once as well. You have those stories constantly coming out from the Valley of coaches knowing exactly what they were doing, cheating, putting ineligible players on their teams. One of the constant things in, of course, soccer that has happened, Valley View, of course, got caught with this, was players that were not a part of, even enrolled in the school. You have to be enrolled in the school you're playing for in sports. But no, they were coming, and this is true. You can find this online again. Players, they were recruiting players just to play soccer for them. And they sort of put them, I guess, on the school. I don't know how it all happened, but that coach was relieved of his duties for Valley View. They got caught that season and had to forfeit their entire season as well. There are constantly stories of that coming out. So it's tough for myself as well to feel bad for coaches that do that. Because of the facts that it constantly has happened. But that's just, my thought process. It's my thoughts on this. But, of course, like I said, it's official, the story that has come out. There's no changes. Salato's in the final. They will play this Saturday. No Valley schools other than Progresso for a split second made it to the Final Four for that exactly. And it's unfortunate the way that it all happened. But consistently happens, is how it seems. And it will be reported on every single time. But anyways, we'll move on here very quickly. We got a little free 10 minutes as well. This show won't necessarily end until that 3:10, which is kind of cool. We'll probably go until maybe 5 more minutes or something. Anyways, we've already hit 1 hour to be exact, so I can technically end this now. Actually, I think I will. But really, to wrap things up, this has been a great show. I'm looking forward to these finals as well, and safe travels, of course, to all of our teams that are traveling to the regional, or not regionals, but the state semis and finals in the charter school realm of soccer, as well as our team, including Edward, and I believe potentially Jermaine, also known as DeMarcus, for Rio Sports Live traveling to San Marcos. That's going to be a very fun trip to cover all that soccer. And of course, look out for all of our baseball and softball games happening, of course, this weekend. And it'll be phenomenal. I'm looking forward to all of the sports this weekend, and I will have it all for you all to recap next Wednesday. And we will continue to keep tabs with, of course, the RTV Red Crown soccer team. We'll keep tabs with the Texas Southmost College soccer team because they have more signings coming up here very soon, and that's always fun to think about. I can't wait for all of what is coming up here very soon. That'll be it from me. I've been Jacob Young. This has been a Real Sports Live presentation. And until next time, we will see you all very soon. Take care, everybody.